Today's video will be starting with a little song written and performed by my housemate. You're going to listen to it now, and you're going to like it. Hit it, maestro.
Now that sticks to that important story that we put up over 3 films, Eddie. Oh, I don't know, but I'm years from going to be making a big Hollywood film that's going to pay off the story out of 3 films.
Hey, what's up? I'm Channel Pup, fanboy supervillain. And today I'm gonna be reviewing Venom: The Last Dance, or as I'm gonna be referring to it in this review most of the time, Venom 3. This review will have a devoted spoiler section, and you will be warned when that kicks in, so rest easy. I'm not gonna spoil you on anything without adequate warning first, so listen carefully, okay? Before we get stuck in, if you love comic book movies, mainly Spider-Man stuff, as well as just other geek stuff, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to be able to download this video and others like it to watch ad-free, you can do so for as little as $1 a month over on my Patreon page, as well as reaping other benefits. Link is in the description below. All support is hugely appreciated. Thank you very much. Okay, so just a quick recap of my thoughts on the other 2 Venom movies, just for the sake of framing this review up, giving you that bit of extra context. The first Venom movie I thought was a mostly dull action blockbuster, but it certainly had its high points. The best thing about it was Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, and the chemistry between him and Venom, voiced by the late Brad Venable, before Tom Hardy would take over the role of Venom as well in the second movie, Let There Be Carnage. That first film was just kind of bogged down by a very weak villain, a very weak threat, and a super generic origin story for Venom. But the kind of silliness that you'd get from the duo of Eddie and Venom, as well as kind of the very sort of light House of Horrors kind of body horror, meant that the film was not without its standout moments. Then for Venom Let There Be Carnage, we leaned much more into that zany silliness. I've noticed that a lot of people really don't like Venom Let There Be Carnage, but I for one loved it. It knows exactly what it wants to be. It is just pure, over-the-top shithousery from start to finish. It benefits from having really great villains this time with Carnage and Shriek, to supporting cast members with Anne Weying and Dr. Dan Lewis feel a lot more settled in now, and just the overall tone of this one was far more consistent, and it led to a very enjoyable movie if you're willing to accept that this isn't going to be that ideal comic booky Venom movie. Let There Be Carnage was by no means a great adaptation of Venom or Carnage. I wouldn't say it did Carnage justice, but it was a very enjoyable romp. That ended setting up Venom's entry into the MCU with him potentially facing off against Spider-Man, which led to absolutely fuck all. So okay, in reference to that, Venom 3, how does it stack up against the other 2? Well, Venom 1 was a mostly dull blockbuster that had its moments. Venom 2 was an absolute shithousery spectacular. And Venom 3 is a mostly dull blockbuster that certainly has its moments. Yay. So this film reeks, and I mean absolutely stinks of, we can't do Spider-Man, we killed off Carnage, now what? Now how can we get people hyped? Oh my god, grasp all of the comic books you can. What can we put in here? What can make sense without Spider-Man and Carnage? The end result is the barrel scrapings of what could have been a fairly interesting Venom franchise. Kelly Marcel makes her directorial debut, and she did a fine job overall. I don't think her direction matches the energy and bombast of Andy Serkis's direction in the second one, but she did a fine job with the action sequences and the comedy beats, so I don't see any reason why we shouldn't see her direct some more movies kind of like this. But okay, I'm gonna give you a spoiler-free rundown of the overall plot of Venom 3. So, Null, the god of the symbiotes, was betrayed by his own creation, so he created the xenophages to wipe out the symbiotes. He requires a codex to escape from his prison, and that codex is within Venom and Eddie, and becomes visible when the symbiote fully emerges from Eddie, so when he goes full Venom, basically. The codex was created within Venom and Eddie when Venom revived Eddie in the first Venom film. There's quite a bit of lore to keep up with. While this is going on, Rex Strickland, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, is hunting down Eddie Brock, who is now wanted for the murder of Patrick Mulligan. Patrick Mulligan, though, is actually alive and well and being kept in Area 51. So, it's a cross-country road trip as Eddie travels to New York City to find someone who owes him a favor to clear his name. On the road, Eddie hitchhikes with a family of hippies traveling to Area 51. The father of the family played by Rhys Ifans. And that's more or less it. The film is at its best when Tom Hardy is on screen, as interactions between Eddie and Venom are once again this film's highlight. The issue is that this film's focus is very much divided through Eddie and Venom, the doctors at Area 51, Rex Strickland, and the hippie family. So with Eddie and Venom being generally less present in this film, and a lack of screen time for the fully bonded Venom form, I did feel a little shortchanged in terms of what I came to this movie for. The other characters as well do not uphold the tone of the film either, as it flips between goofy camp for Tom Hardy scenes to more serious and dour with the Area 51 doctors. And with the size of the supporting cast, sadly much of the supporting cast from the first two films did not return for this one. Anne Weying and Dan Lewis are nowhere to be found, and with that, a lot of the heart of the previous films is now gone, and it's a shame because I really grew to like Anne and Dan in the previous film. I think Rex Strickland was an okay choice of antagonist for this film. We can at least get behind his motivations more or less, and Chiwetel Ejiofor does a good job in the role. However, I'd be lying if I said that Chiwetel Ejiofor and Rhys Ifans were not undoubtedly stunt cast to get fans speculating about multiversal implications. Both Chiwetel Ejiofor and Rhys Ifans play their roles well, however they could have been played by plenty of other actors, and I don't doubt that they were cast with marketing in mind. I'm not making that like an objective criticism or declaration by any stretch, nor does it really get in the way of the enjoyment of the film, but I reckon that was probably the case. So for Rex Strickland, it made kind of sense to have more of a kind of a straight man character for the antagonist this time, especially when you're kind of off the back of Carnage. Trying to match that manic energy is probably no use. The problem is, though, as the straight man of the film, he doesn't really interact with any of the wackiness of it. He doesn't feel overwhelmed by all the zaniness of what's going on or really reactive to it. He just feels like a character who walked out of an entirely different movie. And then there's the doctors at Area 51, and their screen time doesn't feel earned, warranted, justified, any of those words. It just cuts in with very lengthy scenes of these two. There's a reason for it, but there's not like a justification for it. I'll go into more detail about that in the spoiler section though. Patrick Mulligan is in this movie. In the comics, he goes on to become Toxin, and in this film, he's completely and utterly wasted, and I'll go into more detail about that in the spoiler section. But for now, yeah, he is completely wasted. There are several instances throughout the film where it feels like we're going to enter some interesting territory with these characters, only for the film to just completely forget what happened. At one point, it feels like Eddie's character is going to go down a certain direction, but then it just very quickly gets shrugged off. The venomized animals were fun. They were a major part of the marketing, and it's only really one scene, but I did enjoy that scene. It was one of the film's highlights. And yeah, you've got these big dramatic moments in the third act as well, but they feel very unearned as well. I realize that so far already this review kind of feels a little all over the place, but the truth be told, I think this is about as well as I can cover it spoiler-free right now. It's a very unfocused, all over the place movie with a lot of moving parts for me to kind of talk about, but none of them really amount to much, so I just kind of end up jumping from point to point with not a lot to really say other than just how kind of undercooked it feels. And that's just it. Venom 3 just feels incredibly undercooked. I like it about as much, if not maybe just a little more than the first Venom film, but definitely nowhere near as much as the second. Overall, Venom 3 tries desperately hard to justify its own existence, but if it wasn't clear already that Sony do not know what they're doing with these Spider-Man spin-off movies, it's clear here. I don't really detect any competency from this film in terms of any of the emotional catharsis, the character beats, or the foreshadowing that this film is trying desperately hard to achieve. And by the end of it, I'm not excited for anything this film is setting up either. There are cool ideas within this movie, but none of them are given enough time to be fleshed out. And I think what they really needed to do with this was just look into that pool of ideas and just take out 2 and just make the most of those. I'll go more into that in the spoiler section. So as for like recommendations, I'd always recommend seeing a film for yourself and forming your own opinion if you're interested enough in the film. But I disagree with a take that I've heard from other reviews, such as like Jeremy Jones, saying that if you like the previous 2 movies, you'll like this one. I wouldn't say that's a guarantee. This one has the most divided focus, and probably has the least focus on Tom Hardy's performance, which has been the highlight of the previous 2. You get the overall picture by now. Yeah, this one wasn't great. There are scenes in there that made me not regret purchasing a movie ticket, and there were a lot of times when I was thinking, can we hurry this up? Can we move on? Can we get back to the next, scene of Venom and Eddie? As far as junk food comic book movies go, this one barely satisfies, and by the end it feels like you didn't even watch anything. Alright, you get the idea. Let's go to the spoiler part now. Let's talk spoilers. From the jump, the film gets off on bad footing. It wastes no time in establishing Null as the threat of this film, but it is incredibly abrupt and clunky, with him going so far as to just be like, my name is Null, this is what happened to me, this is everything I've been through, and this is my motivation, let's go. Maybe you could have spent a little more time on that. The next scene after that is a reprisal of the bar scene from Spider-Man No Way Home, where we get some Thanos references and then Venom is immediately sent home. So if you watch Venom 2 and Venom 3 back to back, this is all you're getting from that setup from the end of Venom 2. The big, oh, let's go find Spider-Man thing just leads to this bar scene. Storytelling geniuses, I tell you. I guess within the context of the MCU Spider-Man films, it means that yes, there is a symbiote in the MCU, but within the context of these Venom movies, if you're looking at this story, Venom quickly popped over to the MCU, teased Spider-Man, and then came back. However, this film does give us some clarification on what became of the different characters that were sent home after Spider-Man No Way Home. And it turns out that my theory was correct. You get sent back to the adjacent place in that dimension. So Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and the other villains wouldn't have been sent back to the location of their deaths, they would have been sent back to Staten Island. Just as Eddie is sent back to the same bar but in another dimension, so don't worry, we're not retconning the symbiote out of the MCU. Venom is just kind of shedding bits of symbiote left and right, and one of them ends up in the hands of Rex Strickland. But also, again, if you're trying to watch this divorced from the context of Spider-Man, this whole stretch of the movie feels so pointless. And that's the thing, is like, Venom, do you want to be attached to Spider-Man or not? This whole thing would have been much better if they just didn't tease that to begin with. I don't know or care whose fault that is, be it Marvel's or Sony's, it's just shit. But things at least start to look promising as we get our first major action sequence and Venom takes on some dog traffickers. And it's what we came for. Some not-so-graphic body horror, some silly jokes, some bromance, and Venom chomping some dudes' heads off. He also sets all the dogs free, they get to fight back against the traffickers, so maybe it'll all be okay. Maybe everything will be fine and this is what we're in for. That was my thought at the time. Then we cut to Rex Strickland, and it's like, okay, already this film has set up Null as the major threat. Now we're setting up Rex Strickland as kind of the secondary antagonist. All the pieces are in place now, right? Wrong, and this is where the major issues with the film start to set in, as we're shown a flashback to the childhood of Dr. Teddy Payne as her brother is struck by lightning. She works as a doctor at a lab beneath Area 51, which is now being decommissioned. And it's all like, oh man, my brother would have loved this, it's so sympathetic, I don't know who the fuck you are. Who are you? Why are we having this much screen time devoted to you already? So here's the thing, when you've got this superhero sequel, and then you cut to a completely brand new character's childhood flashback, it kind of comes out of left field. Kind of has me wondering why we're doing this now. Surely it would be better to organically introduce the character of Dr. Teddy Payne in the present day, show what her importance is to, I don't know, one of the main characters of the film, and then start exploring her from there, maybe get a flashback from that point onwards. But no, that's not how this film wants to do it. And the thing is, this is not the only scene that focuses on her. We get a ton of long scenes devoted to her, and Dr. Christmas. And again, they don't uphold the tone of the movie in the same way that, say, Anne Wang and Dr. Dan did in Venom 2. The film is trying to go for intense psychological sci-fi when these two are on screen. So we are completely flipping between tones between the scenes of these two and in the scenes of Venom. Then throw in the fact that the scenes of Rex Strickland are also in the more serious tone, and it's like, yeah, we're getting way less and less of the overall tone that we settled into by the time we got to Let There Be Carnage. That might be a good thing for you if you really didn't like the tone of Let There Be Carnage. I, for one, did. But either way, whether you like that tone or not, it's now way more inconsistent. But okay, the question is, why do Dr. Payne and Dr. Christmas get so much screen time? The reason is, for the third act cameo fest, we see a bunch of different symbiotes from the comics bond with these doctors. Dr. Payne going on to become Agony, and Dr. Christmas going on to become Lasher. So, I feel like, to Sony, by spending such an arduous amount of time with these characters, they were going to avoid the accusations of the third act cameo fest by passing these off as origin stories and making them actualized characters. But when it all amounts to a mere few seconds of them in a visual vomit CGI finale, well, no. All that's happened is you've got a cameo fest, but now it's also a horribly paced movie that has me scratching my head as to why the fuck we're spending so much time with these characters. And okay, let me try and name some character traits about either of these two. Dr. Payne, she misses her brother. He was struck by lightning on the beach one day. Bummer. And Dr. Christmas? She really likes Christmas. I don't really get it. And also, when Dr. Payne becomes Agony, that symbiote has lightning powers. Foreshadowing. I didn't enjoy the second movie for its subtlety, but Jesus Christ. Alright, we'll talk about that third act in a bit. As Venom tries to evade the military, Eddie, while separated from Venom, ends up killing a soldier. And in this moment, you can tell he feels awful about it. Venom then tells him he did the right thing, and the film just forgets any of that happened, which is so bizarre because we've got the first kill, not for Venom, but for Eddie, and it is just brushed off, making me wonder why the fuck they even did that. This could have been an interesting direction to take. Venom always eats ass and takes names. But Eddie, as far as we know, hasn't really killed before. Going by the movie's logic anyway, you could say he was complicit. But even then, killing someone in cold blood right there and then, that would impact you, and this could have set Eddie off on an arc where he kind of learns the differences between himself and Venom, learns that this life is not doing him any good, or maybe this could take him down a darker path, but no, the scene just exists for the hell of it.
Don't worry, Eddie. You did the right thing.
Oh, well, okay. And yeah, this film really doesn't sweat the details when it comes to things like civilian casualties. Because we got the big fight that we saw in the trailer between Venom and the Xenophage aboard the airliner. And that ends super abruptly with the Xenophage smashing into one of the jet engines, and we literally never find out whether or not the people on that flight died. Eddie never mentions it. Venom never mentions it. Nobody ever mentions it. It's like the scene never happened. Okay, so Patrick Mulligan. Okay, so it turns out he's alive underneath Area 51, which is being decommissioned. Okay, so, right. We're gonna get Toxin now, right? No. He bonds with a new green symbiote, which admittedly looks cool. The way it, like, moves around the room very graciously. Yeah, that looked awesome. Alright, what's he gonna do? Spout exposition about Null. Exposition we already speed ran in the opening scene. And then as soon as that big third act battle with all the different symbiotes happens, he gets eaten immediately by a Xenophage. He does nothing. But don't worry, we do have the Toxin story off screen. They mention that his symbiote left him and he needs a new one. You know, doing a story like the Toxin story off screen is kind of worse than not doing it at all. Because that's a really cool story. It's not one you necessarily need Spider-Man for, even though he was a part of Toxin's origin story along with Black Cat, but you could adapt it to not have those two in it. That being said, you would need Carnage for it. It was just asinine that they killed off Carnage in the second one. But I mean, you could tell a new story with Toxin. You know, you did Venom's origin story without Spider-Man. Did it work? just about. Utterly inferior, but it does work. So then there's the catalyst for that third act final battle. Because we established early on that this film is going to have barely any Venom in it, because when Venom is fully in his Venom form, that's when the Codex is visible to the Xenophages, but if he's just kind of in Eddie, I guess, like, it's not visible, so they spend most of the movie like that. But then Venom just decides, I want to dance with Mrs. Chen. And so when they run into her in Vegas, he insists on dancing with her, and lo and behold, the Xenophages find them. So okay, that final battle, are we up against Null? Nah, he does nothing in this movie but sit there with his head down and spout exposition about what a threat he is, and the only time we really get a glimpse of what he even looks like is in the mid-credits, and it's CGI that I could imagine in the trailer for a video game. It looks really bad. Alright, thanks, I'm now super hyped for Null. The thing is though, Venom doesn't really participate much in the final battle either, with the film instead flashing us little glory shots of the other symbiotes in the battle. For some reason, the hippie family are involved in the battle, because get this, they get into Area 51 through a hole in the fence. A secret government black site that is still in the process of being decommissioned. They got in through a fucking hole in the fence. It's fine, it's a Venom movie, I expect that kind of nonsensical stuff. Actually, it's not fine. No, there's Area 51. Come on, what are you doing? Okay, so yeah, with the setup of Area 51 being decommissioned, we've got these acid baths near the start of the film that destroy all evidence of the research that was going on there. And well, Venom gets this big self-sacrifice moment. He detaches from Eddie, he gathers up a load of Xenophages, and he and the Xenophages enter one of the acid baths and die. Yep, Venom dies in this movie. It's super emotional, super sad. Goodbye, Venom.
Goodbye, Eddie. I'm going to die now.
And the film ends with a scene of Eddie exploring New York City after his name is cleared off-screen, lamenting that he wishes Venom could have made it to the Statue of Liberty, which I think was kind of an allegory for how we all wish Venom could have gotten a chance to meet Spider-Man. The montage is set to Memories by Maroon 5, which reminded me of those Family Guy AI voice ads.
Cause the drinks bring back all the memories,
and the memories bring back you.
By no means is that an objective criticism, but it did pull me out of it, and none of the emotion of this scene landed for me whatsoever, because we already established early on that Venom was shedding little bits of symbiote, so he's still out there. That, and in the press, there's been this whole I'll never say never thing with Tom Hardy regarding Venom, which is maybe setting up for Venom to appear in Secret Wars or something. That would be nice. But also, this death scene just doesn't feel earned either, as it's such a spur-of-the-moment decision. Venom hasn't really at any point in the film earlier decided, oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself, or this is maybe the only way. No, he's been so fixated on the two's survival up until the point he decides to have a dance with Mrs. Chen. So Venom himself and his overall motives are just all over the place in this movie. One thing I can say for sure about him, though, is that he's a fucking idiot. Then there's the after credits, which reveal that the Agony symbiote survived and has bonded to a cockroach. A lot of folks were very confused by what that was. I got it. I'm not excited about it. The film definitely has its moments, but on a whole, that was incredibly unsatisfying. As my housemate Sam and I left the cinema, we were talking about whether Broadway musicals can ever really make the translation to big screen adaptations. So it's safe to say we weren't exactly inspired by what we just watched, because we were talking more about the Wicked poster that we saw on our way out. As the credits rolled on Venom: The Last Dance, a lot of questions went through my head. If Null is the Thanos of the Sony universe, who's gonna fight him? Kraven the Hunter, and who else? Agony? Let's be realistic, Morbius isn't returning, Madam Web was decanonized before it was even released, so Kraven the Hunter and Agony, I guess. It was one thing that Venom and Spider-Man were never going to meet, another thing entirely to tease it and never follow it up, resulting in this being the finale. Why did they do that? Also, why the fuck did they kill off Carnage after one movie when they didn't have Spider-Man available? If you want to make Venom movies without Spider-Man happen, you ought to be holding on to Carnage for dear fucking life. That's more of a flaw for Let There Be Carnage than this. So, yeah, this is the result. This is the consequence. And then one more question that I had was, what dirt do Avi Arad, Amy Pascal, and Matt Tolmach have on whoever the CEO of Sony Pictures is? Because their job security must be absolutely nuclear. I don't really like being that jerk that says, this guy should be fired. But let's face it, Avi Arad, Amy Pascal, and Matt Tolmach have enough money to retire by now, and have had more than enough chances. They are a problem. In any other industry, if they'd turned in this quality of work this consistently, they would be out. They have failed so many times to make successful and well-received comic book movies. If you were to work at McDonald's and fail even half the amount of times these guys have failed at making a Big Mac, you would be fired immediately. What dirt do they have? What has the CEO of Sony Pictures done? And what do you know? This is all just a joke. But really, how are they still working? It's just, I think the main thing I lament here is that this film didn't even lean into what was good about the previous Venom movies. We couldn't have the thing we wanted, and that was to see Spider-Man and Venom throw down, but we did get something out of these movies with Tom Hardy in the role of Eddie and Venom, and Venom 3 barely even delivered on that. Ugh, what a waste. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. Before you run off, I just want to have a quick chat, YouTuber to audience member. This year, we hit 100,000 subscribers, and what an incredible milestone that is. It really is a dream come true. Every time I'm feeling a little at a loss for motivation, I look to that silver play button, and I'm reminded that I have 100,000 people rooting for me. My heart is truly full thanks to that. Then there is the cold hard logistics though, kind of the expenses that go into kind of running this channel, as well as just basic survival as well. As the year has gone on and ad revenue has become slimmer and slimmer, despite views overall being okay, patron support has become more and more important. So I'm making it kind of my mission to step up and improve my Patreon output, the benefits that you guys get, so that I can offer something that is truly worthwhile. Right now, with just $1 a month, you can download these videos to watch ad-free, view exclusive posts including teasers for upcoming projects, and you get your name in the credits of these videos. I'm not asking for $10 a month or $5 a month or anything like that. It's just if as many people as possible would be able to just send in $1 a month, it would allow me to put more time into YouTube while also being financially stable as well. It's not something I take for granted in the slightest, so if you can't or you just don't want to, you don't owe me any kind of explanation for that. I just need to do better to push this, because things have been a little financially dicey over the past year, and I do owe it to my roommates to do what I can to ensure that I can uphold my end of the rent. To everyone who has donated to the Patreon page, I am extremely grateful. Patrons in the $5 and above tier do get a special shout out as well. So that's Silver, Josh Strider, Big Mum, Grant Allen, Zach Strand, Shady Sham, Twilord, Coco210, Nigel Thrashner, Hey It's Classy, Jay Sevian, Ian, Cho Henshin, KB, RT0, Carlex, Hypes, Sad Goku, Dare Denny, SSS06, Kale Bennett, the guy who asked for 2D and 3D games. How dare you, Kale Bennett. Ken K, Mr. SP, Cirrus the Skeptic, Biotin. Did you know this entire video was AI generated? That's Zinko's username, by the way. It wasn't. And Vera Wild. Thank you, good folks, so much for your generosity. And to all of you at home, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Now get out of here.